Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, and Brian Murphy.
What's going on, and happy holidays. Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We are thrilled to be with you here as we're recording this 2 days before Christmas. I know we all didn't get the Christmas present we want, which would have been a UCF victory in Boca Raton Bowl. But hey, you know what? We're all together. We're a family. We're going to get through it. We're all going to collectively not overreact to a bowl game, right? Eric?
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, the fan base is really following your lead there, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, that's why you may have noticed why I haven't been on social media very much the last couple days. So we'll recap UCF's season-ending shortcomings in the Boca Raton Bowl. We'll also talk about men's basketball, which is off to a very good start. Another win, a win in conference against Cincinnati in a very tough basketball game. We'll also talk about women's basketball, what they've got coming up next and after the holidays. And, of course, we got some news and notes. Murph, you're going to talk about the baseball schedule being up?
I'll mention it briefly.
Well, I should correct myself. It's not that the baseball schedule is up. It's that the baseball schedule format is up. We don't know who's playing when. So let's not get everybody too excited. And some news out of Idaho about Boise State and the American. A little bit of some flirting going on. I don't know. I'm trying to keep it PG rated here, but a little wink wink nudge nudge, So we'll talk about that. Let's talk about the bowl game though. So Eric, you and Drew already went deep on this on Night Shift, but just to recap for those of you who have been, who have not had internet access for the past couple days, good for you. 49-23 was the score. BYU with the victory over UCF. The Knights finished 6-4 on the season. It's the first loss by more than one score for a Josh Heupel coached UCF team. He had never lost a game by more than one score until Tuesday night against BYU. The Cougars jumped out 21-0 and did not look back in the first. They scored 2 touchdowns in the first 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Zach Wilson was as advertised. Just an unbelievable game by him. 26-34, 425, 3 touchdowns. Dylan Gabriel on the other side, probably his worst performance as a UCF Knight, which in all, all in all actually wasn't too bad, although he was below 50% in completion percentage. 21-45, 217, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Greg McCrae was the leading rusher with 77 yards and a touchdown. Otis Anderson had 73. Tyler Algier was all over the place for BYU. 173 yards and a touchdown, 9.1 a carry. And when we look at the team stats, this is really where BYU just they had an answer for everything. 655 yards of total offense for BYU. 9.0 yards per play. They actually ran 15 fewer plays than UCF. The UCF had 411 yards on 88 plays for just 4.7 yards per play in this game. So, Murph, well, you were there. It was ugly right from the get-go, unfortunately. And I credit to BYU. They came out ready to play, and they put us down early. and then they kept their foot on our throat. And even though it looked like there was a glimmer of hope, but, Jalen Robinson had that touchdown pass that would have cut the lead in half, it looked like, but he dropped it. But my thought was, even if he had caught that one, this was BYU's night, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Even if UCF's offense was running at a decent clip with some sort of efficiency, there was too many losses on defense for them to have any chance against this BYU offense.
Yeah.
It really was the game. By the way, interesting symmetry here. So you said Dylan was 21 of 45, right?
Right.
Worst completion percentage for a UCF quarterback since Dylan Gabriel went 8 for 20 against FAU.
That's right. His first start
in the same stadium.
Mm-hmm. Let's not go back there anymore. Let's just call it now.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
I will say it's actually a really nice stadium from the overhead view. It's beautiful, actually, because you get to look out toward the sunset. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Anyway, and then
let's not go back.
And the game is awful. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. We talked about it at nauseum yet last night on the night shift. Like, defense was shorthanded, got picked apart by a first-round quarterback. I've seen a mock draft today on Pro Football Focus that had Zach Wilson going second overall.
Wow! Really?
Yes, that was today on Pro Football Focus. They had Zach Wilson going second.
Holy smokes!
In front of Justin Fields.
Well, he owes us some money then.
Oh, listen. Oh, he's gonna make so much money off that game. Like I said it. I think I mentioned it on Night Shift. That game is going to be playing over and over and over again, leading up to the NFL draft. That's the game they're going to use for Zach Wilson.
Get used to seeing that highlight package with Todd McShay or Mel Kiper talking over it, huh?
Yeah.
Like we said last night, you're going to see was the one touchdown pass. I think it might have been to Pau, the one late in the second half, which was 35 yards out down the right side, and it was just a magnet. The ball was just flung on a rope and right into the receiver's hands with Zamari Maxwell right there in coverage, but there's nothing you can do to defend the perfect throw.
Yeah.
And that was like, I said last night, like, Zach Wilson, like, yes, he was great. Also, he had like guys running. He had a bunch of free runners all over the place. Like Isaac Rex was like basically uncovered for most of the day, and he just found him. Like it wasn't that hard. Like it wasn't like he proved to me how great he was because he was throwing in tight windows or scrambling for his life and throwing across his body. Like no, he had all day to set up. He was on platform the entire night. He had 5 seconds every play to find a man who was usually wide open by 5 yards, and then he made a couple really nice, sharp, tight throws. But the rest of it was just picking apart a lost defense.
Eric, you like me watched on television. This is one of those things where it's just you had a bunch of guys who were out there on defense who were not used to being in that position. Obviously, Richie Grant didn't play. Robinson didn't play. God bless him. I'm sure these secondary guys are going to be talented players, but like it was Highway 88 for them against one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Yeah, I mean, they were shorthanded. I think everything Murph said is legit.
Not an excuse, but it is a reason.
But then again, that's why I said, why play the bowl game? Why did you accept the bowl? You knew what you were getting yourself into in that regard. Now, maybe you thought you would have a couple extra players that ended up not playing that surprised people. But I just look, it's a bad ending. It was a lousy game. Pro Football Focus, by the way, for whatever it's worth, rated this performance by the defense worse than the South Florida game, which I didn't think was possible. I didn't even think that was possible. That needs
to be graded on a curve. You know,
Graded on a curve. Well, I don't know. I mean, they were late. I don't know. I didn't think that was possible. But nonetheless, look, everything that could go wrong went wrong in that game. It's an ugly ending. And what's unfortunate about this, while we use common sense, and I've said this, and this is why what I don't like about bowl games is we make this a bigger deal than it is. Because now the ship is sinking on the program, and everything is this, and next year is kind of in the wasteland. When
the social media reaction so far has been it's over, right, which is preposterous.
Said, and I agree with Murph. I don't believe a bowl game either way carries over to the next year. If that was the case, UCF would have never lost again after the Fiesta Bowl win or the Peach Bowl win, or vice versa. That UCF would have never won a game after they got blown out by Arkansas State, which you and I were at. And that was the last time UCF, by the way, lost by more than one score.
Yeah.
So
anybody remember that? Huh?
That was pretty bad too.
Remember like 2 years ago when like Texas was back, they won. Was it the Sugar Bowl?
That's still
Georgia.
They beat Notre Dame in a double overtime game in Austin.
That happened. That was the testator call. But Murph's referring to the Texas win over Georgia. But look, I mean, that's just is what it is. BYU is superior. There are some questions for this team, the program moving forward, but that doesn't mean it can't get fixed or what the issues are. But look, it's ugly, and that's the unfortunate thing is it leaves you with a really ugly, bad taste in your mouth for a while because it was I think people understand why the defense struggled against BYU. I think the surprising thing is how the offense looks so bad. And I think that's the disappointing thing. I think this was a game that was hyped as a top 5 bowl game matchup. Hey, this should be an exciting game. And it was anything but.
Yeah, I mean, that was the bummer about it. I thought that I was trying to compare the starting lineups from UCF's first game against Georgia Tech to this bowl game, and looking back through it, I think there was one starter. That was the same. 2 starters, excuse me. UCF had 2 starters on defense from the opener. That was the same at the bowl game. Specifically, let's see, I'm going through Anthony Montalvo and Corey Thornton. That's
Eric Gilliard wasn't. Eric Gilliard not
Gilliard. Yeah, Gilliard was a starter. Yeah, I'm sorry. Gilliard was a starter. So that's 3 guys. But that's it.
Yeah.
So eight guys in the same season, all right, that are new.
They were down to their 3rd string nickel and their 3rd string safety.
Right.
I don't know.
Because Wilson got kicked out on the targeting play. They were starting John Powell at safety. And they actually came out officially. They came out with a 3-3, but with Morris Brash, Jean Baptiste, and Gilliard. But I mean, it was just a bad situation. And man, Zach Wilson was just licking his chops all night at that. And give him credit. Give BYU credit. So now the question now becomes: let's assume for the moment that we're right, that this is all a total overreaction. All right, so it was just one of those nights. It was a bad night. We knew this. This was going to come sooner or later at some point. I feel like you're just going to have one of those days. So what are the big questions as we look forward to the offseason? What are the big questions that have to get answered that you feel like, okay, this is now a question now based on this game or the season in general? And Murph, I'll start with you.
Well, I think everyone's wondering about Randy Shannon. Right? Is he going to stay? If he does, what are they going to pay him? Or is he not going to stay? Are they going to replace him? Well, I'm sure we'll find out. We got to find out something here pretty soon. Because we're never too far away from the next football activity, and you've got mid-year recruits coming in January for the next semester, and then you've got spring ball a couple months later. So that's the big thing for me, roster wise. Really, the intriguing parts for me are what does UCF do at running back and wide receiver? Mm-hmm. Two places where they've been loaded with talent for years since Scott Frost was here, and now you are going to lose a lot of just legacy guys there. Obviously Marlon's gone and Greg McCrae's moving on. Otis Anderson's moving on. We're not, 100% sure about Jacob Harris and Trey Nixon because they haven't said so. But, I mean, they're both seniors and they've been in college for a long time. Like, do they want to come back or not? If they don't, then your wide receiving core is, Jalen Robinson, great. Ryan O'Keefe, sure. Deontay Marks from Florida, like, is he going to play more? Or Amari Johnson or Kavon Ahmad, Jakias Credle? There's a lot of question marks there, certainly more so than going into this year. And then in running back, Bentavious Thompson is there, but Demarius Good, Johnny Richardson, do they step up? RJ
Harvey, yeah,
Virginia transfer. What does his role look like? There's a lot of unknown there at two positions where UCF really hasn't had to worry too much for the last 3 or 4 years.
It's not that it's lack of depth. I mean, those guys are there, but it's lack of experience, really, because we didn't really see very much of those guys.
There's not a lot of proven commodities there. Like, at least we knew that. Like, we didn't know if Marlon Williams could step into Gabe Davis's shoes, and then he did that,
right,
and then some. But we knew he was good. We knew Trey Nixon was good. We knew Jalen Robinson was good. But now you're losing multiple guys at receiver and at running back, and you're replacing them with guys who, because of those who were in front of them, just haven't had a lot of reps, haven't had a lot of live action snaps.
Yeah. By the way, regarding Randy Shannon's contract that you mentioned, this is from Ryan Bass reported this on Knights 247, but or at least hinted at it. But it was Steve Berkowitz from USA Today who actually had it in a tweet. Randy Shannon signed a 3-year deal with UCF. His salary the first 2 years, 18 and 19, was $300,000 because he was also getting his buyout from Florida, which added up to that. 2020, his salary was $1 million plus a $300,000 retention bonus. So in 2020, he made, at least as far as what is publicly known, we don't know if this is for sure, but as far as what has been publicly reported, in 2020, he made $1.3 million. So we don't know if he has been, there was a rumor circulating around that he had gotten an extension at some point, but I don't put much faith into that at all. I thought that, granted, schools releasing contract details is always a hard situation, especially nowadays. But, as far as we know, his contract is up. But, obviously as soon as we find some details, we'll get it to you. But, we don't know.
It's odd that the school wouldn't put out some sort of disclaimer or release saying, "Hey, we've extended our defensive coordinator."
Right. Usually you would make a little something about that, or at least it would. Somebody, one of the insiders out there would have dropped it, right? So we don't know. Yeah. We don't know what the status is of Randy Shannon. We have very limited information on it, at least as of right now. Eric, what's the big questions for you?
Is this team ever going to defend again? You guys addressed the coaching situation. I question the players. I don't know if we have good players. Yes, there's certain individuals that I think have potential, but as a unit, I think there's questions. And let's start in the secondary. You're losing a Jim Thorpe finalist. He's pretty good. Might go down as the best safety in the program's history. That's not going to be easy to replace.
And there have been a lot of really good safeties.
Yeah. I mean, shout out to him. That was the highlight from a football standpoint of Tuesday, was that announcement. It went south after that, but that was man, that's not easy to replace. You don't just replace that in 1 year. At least, not in most places anyway. So I think there's questions there. There's questions about the defensive line and who's going to be good. And yes, there's potential and upside, but as we saw this year, to get back to winning the conference championship, which is the expectations of this program, and we'll play Josh Heupel here in a moment, who addressed that in the postgame. The expectations with this program is to win the conference championship, probably be top 25 and be in the mix there, if not to make it to New Year's 6. And to get to that place, they got to get better defensively. Offensively, yes, there's some questions. Jalen Robinson, could he be a number 1 receiver, this or that? But I feel like for the most part, they'll figure it out offensively. They have defensively, that's what they got to get better And, it depends on what you believe the issue is. Some people think it's coaching. I know Andrew has written about this on the Banneret. He talked about it on the show on Night Shift. He thinks it's a scheme issue, which goes back to the coaching. He does not think they should be running a nickel defense. He thinks they should change the format. I don't know. I'm not, I don't know about all that. But do we have enough players and playmakers on the defensive side? Because if you can run all the schemes you want, if you don't have the players, it doesn't matter. And I think that's the biggest question I have for the offseason is how do you get better defensively? Because Tulsa and Cincinnati showed it's not an accident. Those were the top 2 teams in the league in the standings, and they played defense. And that was the difference. And they got to get back to that to some extent. I'm not saying they're going to be a top 25 defense, but they can be a lot better. And I think if they can, then they'll be fine. They will be in the mix. If not, then there's going to be some, questions. And certainly, look, the expectations are going to still be high in this program. And Josh Heupel knows that as he addressed that in the postgame, talking about the expectations and what they need to do to get better.
Yeah, I mean, the expectations for us are to win every time we go out on the football field. That's the belief inside of our program. And, this is obviously the 3 games that are one-possession games. We got to find a way to be on the right way of that one play. This one tonight is different. That's the first time that we've gotten beaten in this way since I've been here. And we're missing guys. Yep, absolutely. But we need to be good enough, whoever's out there, the 11 guys that are out there to play at a championship level. Not hard to evaluate at the end of the day. You line them up and you play them, man. That's the great thing about college football. Competitive arena. You walk off the field, the scoreboard says you're either good enough or you're not. It's as simple as it is. And when you're not on the right side of the scoreboard, you weren't good enough. We all got to get better for us to go do the things that we want to do.
That was Josh Heupel following the game, and I feel like Josh knows the issues, don't you think? Right? Like I said this.
It's pretty obvious. I mean, I hate saying it, but
I just want to mention that because some people think that he doesn't. Right? Like, hey, come on, what is he doing? Like, I think there was a moment, and I don't know if you remember, Jeff, watching this on TV in the third quarter when BYU was scoring. And they kept showing Josh, and he was writing all this notes. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, man, I wondering if he's writing notes about this game, or is he just writing notes about as far as things to address in the offseason, like next week? Because I think he knows. I think he knows what has to get fixed internally. And I think you got to look, remember, they've also got we have not addressed this on the show. Anthony Tucker has left, I would assume, to go to Utah State to be the new offensive coordinator over there. So he's got to find a new running back coach in a minimum, whether that's from promoting from within or going in the outside. So I think you're going to see some tweaks to the staff. And I think there's going to be some things they have to address and decide what is it that we got to do, as he mentioned in the post game. Yeah, as the term he likes to use, Murph, incrementally get better, or incrementally use the words there, very fancy words. In other words, just how do we get better? And that's what they have to address the offseason. Let
me throw some. You know me, I'm a stat geek. So let me throw some stats at you guys. Okay, in 2018, Josh Heupel and Randy Shannon's first year, all right, UCF was 95th in total defense, 433 yards a game. In 2019, UCF was 32nd in total defense, 346 a game. This year, total defense, 123rd, 491 a game. Woo. So they went from not very good to pretty good to really not very good. Rushing defense, which I think is, well, you mentioned what Tulsa and Cincinnati did. That was how they attacked UCF, was running the ball and controlling the line of scrimmage. 117th in 18, 53rd in 19, and 94th this year. Passing yards allowed. 50th in 18. Where is it? 26th in 19. 121st this year.
Well, they went from Tay Gowan and Neville Clark to 2 true freshman corners.
Yeah. Now, let's also bear in mind this team is built to cause turnovers, right? They were tied for 3rd in turnover margin in 2018. They were tied for 27th in turnover margin in 19, and this year they were 7th in the country in turnover margin. That's what they do, right? That's your bend but don't break philosophy. Is you're going to give up yards, you're going to give up points, but cause some turnovers. BYU did not turn the ball over in the game, so when that doesn't happen, things go south. But
you see, Randy Shannon's defense is also based on pressure and TFLs.
Yeah,
and there weren't any of those either.
Yeah, that didn't happen. Credit to BYU's offensive line, because I think there were two guys that were out for them.
They were out, right?
Including one of them was an All-American, I think, right?
Yes. But and I wrote about the piece about where Mackenzie Milton might end up, I put BYU in there, and one of the reasons I did was their offensive line was second. They were second according to PFF, as far as best offensive line in college football. They have done a nice job developing offensive line over there, and they've played very physical, which is one of the things that was certainly a concern going into this matchup, is in that line of scrimmage. And again, it goes back to the defensive line. Can they improve? Can they not get pushed around? When this team has been successful, when they've won conference championships, they don't get pushed around. They've had guys up front that don't allow to get pushed around, whether it be a Pittman or Tristan Hill or Tony Gerard or whoever you want to do. And I'm not saying they don't have guys that have upside, and we focus on the secondaries you mentioned, Murph. But you know what? The thing that would make a secondary's life a lot better would be if you put some pressure on the quarterback as well. You can't leave a cornerback in an island for 3-4 seconds in today's college football with these quarterbacks, because they'll slice you up. So I think it's a combination of a lot of things that just didn't go well this year at the end of the day. Now, it's fixable. This is fixable. That just because, again, you had a bad year this year or so-and-so, it doesn't mean it can't get fixed for next year. I think that's the positive. It's not something that's permanent, but I think those are things that will have to be addressed by the staff, and we'll see what happens.
Listen, the coaching staff is not stupid. They know what the problems are, right? It's just, if they also know a heck of a lot more than we do about why those problems occurred. So they're going to have their solutions. I don't know what their solutions are, but they may or may not be the same as what we think they're going to be. So I don't know. It's going to be an intriguing offseason.
It's a gut check. The staff's got to look internally, but I think also the fan base has to look internally. They got to forget about 2017. That's over with. That's done. And I think some people are having a hard time accept that. The 25 straight wins, that doesn't happen every year. Every program, okay? Every program, unless you have Nick Saban on your sidelines or Dabo Swinney, is going to have a clunker of a year here and there. Things are going to not go smoothly. So just that's the way life goes, man. I mean, and I keep seeing people reaching out about the recruiting on the show. Listen, if recruiting Florida was the answer to everything, why isn't Miami better? Why isn't Florida State better? Why isn't Florida better if the state of Florida is the answer, if you just recruit Florida kids? Can somebody answer me that?
We talked about that a couple weeks ago when we talked about signing day. It's like, as long as you get your guys that fit your system and are the best players for your program, I don't care where they come from.
Yeah,
get good players.
And we've also talked about and that's what we've talked about before. And I've written about at length on the site about how we have that recruiting and player development database where it's about player development. What happens to those guys over the course of the time that they're at UCF? Do they get better? Do they move on? What do they do? That's the part that always gets overlooked. Recruiting does not win you anything. There are no trophies for recruiting, so stop pretending that there are.
Amen to that. And like I said, we'll find out in the next year or two. Like I said, there are things to be tweaked on, but I also think people have got to let go of 17 and 18. That run is over. You're not winning the next 25 games. I'm sorry. That doesn't work that way in college. It doesn't work that way in college football unless you have Nick Saban, and even Nick Saban drops a game here and there.
Yeah. So I mean, but I guess, do we say that now? Can we say that? Did this game mark the end of that run, that era, or is there still gas in the tank from the standard that was set there?
I think that ended last year. Now,
that era ended before this season started.
Yeah, now you could argue it ended. Some would argue it ended when the infamous, obviously when McKenzie went down in Tampa. Some would say it ended at Pittsburgh last year when the streak ended. It is what it is. It ended. And I think people had this idea that this was going to last forever, and that doesn't work in today's college football. Again, take away Alabama, Ohio State to some extent, and Clemson. Every college football team goes through ups and downs. Look at Florida State, what in the mess they're in. They had a great run, and then now they're in the mess. Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, that's been a hot topic. Oh, he stinks as a coach. He averages 9 wins a game, but he can't beat Ohio State, so he's a bum. It's just all over the place. And this is not just a UCF issue. This is a college football issue. There are no bigger whiny fans than college football fans. They're spoiled. And in today's game now, if you go at 8-3, 9-3, 8-4, they want to fire coaches every year, and it doesn't work that way.
I knew we would get Eric.
Unless you're in Auburn. Apparently in Auburn you can. Apparently in Auburn you could do that.
Eric, I have a question.
No, I don't think you can, because how many guys did they go through before they finally threw a Brinks truck at Brian Harsin, right? I mean, at this point, I mentioned on Twitter, like, Auburn is basically too big to fail, and that's why a lot of coaches were like, no, I don't want to deal with that.
Eric, I have a question. When these spoiled fans, when they're complaining, what do they sound like?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to go that the stereotype.
You have the people.
Boo! Get him out of here! How could he lose there? That's terrible. Get him out of here. You're fired.
We did it, Murph. We did it. We did it. The show is a success.
I didn't. UCF troll fan voice went to Staten Island there for a minute. Okay.
Well, I don't know. I just had like a little George Steinbrenner moment. Like George, I feel like everybody thinks they're George Steinbrenner. Like back in, you guys are Yankee fans. Every time something went wrong, he just fired Billy Martin. It was his fault.
He fired Billy Martin 5 minutes. He almost fired him at an introductory press conference.
And I'm not saying that you don't have a right to be disappointed with the game or the season. That's fine. I get it. That's fair. But every time, can we just stop every time the game loses? All right, fire everybody. And it's not just a UCF thing. I mean, I'm sick of Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska people are just the same thing. They think that they should return to the Tommy Frazier days. Scott Frost is heading that program in the right direction. I'm sorry that it's taking more than a minute. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Frank Beamer would not have lasted in Blacksburg. Bobby Bowden would not have lasted at Florida State with today's kind of
Howard Schnellenberger at Miami, for that matter.
Right. I think how long that took to build the program. Yeah. I mean, it takes a while, and you're going to have ups and downs. I mean, as a Dolphin fan, Don Shula is regarded as the greatest head coach of all time. Look at the 80s. Late 80s, we couldn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah,
we didn't fire him.
There were some clunkers during Marino's prime, let me tell you.
Parcells, you guys are giant. Parcells had some clunkers there.
Parcells himself was almost fired.
Right.
In 82, I think, right, Murph? Somewhere around there. So.
Right. So let's see what happens in the offseason. They're going to add some players, I'm sure, on transfer. We'll see what happens with the staff, and hopefully they get good players. And then we can reassess this a year from now, hopefully under more normal circumstances than these circumstances that we've dealt with, which is the worst year in the history of the world ever.
That's, well, I don't know about that, but I mean, there have been some pretty bad years in the history of the world, Eric. Let's just be real.
All right, maybe in our recent history. How about
that? Anyway, one thing and we'll end the segment on this. One thing I think that the coaching staff and everybody really at UCF deserves a tremendous commendation for is that they got through this season without losing a game due to COVID-19, which takes a degree of discipline and good communication by the players and the coaches. They committed to the cause, and they did a great job. They should be commended for that. I mean, the record wasn't great, but let's just be honest. When you look around the country, that's pretty freaking remarkable what they were able to pull off every game that they had. So,
Get him out of here! That's not acceptable. We should have won all of the games.
Anyway,
how's Coastal Carolina better than us?
Coastal Carolina.
Where are they from?
I would have loved to have seen a game between us and Coastal Carolina. Believe me. Anyway, let's take a break. When we get back, we are going to talk about men's basketball. Big win over Cincinnati. Tough win over Cincinnati. Hard fought. They're going to be on national TV this weekend. My goodness, Eric Lopez. We have more TV to talk about. Stick around. We'll be right back. It's the Black Gold Banneret Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you here 2 days before Christmas. We're recording this on Wednesday, December 23rd. In the wake of UCF men's basketball getting off to a 3-1 start, and after the upset victory against Florida State. By the way, great game. Actually, let's talk about that first because we haven't really gotten into that too much because it happened on Saturday. But they go into Tallahassee and they beat Florida State 86-74. Old news now, I get it, but I just wanted to pay some tribute to this because what a game for Brandon Mahan. 10 of 13. Eric, you guys talked about this on, you had the night shift that happened right after that. 10 of 10 at the line, 32 points. 22 points for Isaiah Adams, 20 points for Darren Green, including 6 threes. And they just played defense down the stretch on Florida State and took care of business in this game. Wow, it was really what a second half for them too. They outscored Florida State by 17 points, 52-35 in this game. And even though they had the 2 weeks off after the Michigan game, to go up to that place and beat that team and hold their NBA prospect, right? Scotty Barnes to 3 of 8, 8 points, 3 assists was in 29 minutes was really a remarkable feat. Murph, you were paying attention very closely to the game, even though you weren't up there and you were lamenting.
Oh, don't rub it in. Come on. Wow.
Hey, listen, no. I'm complimenting you because you made a responsible decision and you had to put priorities over priority. Hey, I totally get it.
Doesn't mean he feels good about it. He threw his hat on the.
I don't think he should feel bad about it at all. I don't think he should feel bad about it.
I feel awful. I'm filled with major FOMO.
You should not.
In hindsight, it was brutal.
You should not. I'm picking you back up off the mat, but that was a performance, wasn't it?
It was great. It was very unexpected and fantastic, and it was really good to see that sort of carry over. It wasn't as flashy offensively against Cincinnati, which we kind of expected it not to be because these Cincinnati games are always sort of a mud fight. But it was good to see Brandon Mahan stay hot. CJ Walker continued to play really good defense. This team overall played really good defense. Continue to, even though they got out-rebounded pretty badly against Cincinnati this last game, they really didn't allow any second-chance points, which they didn't allow at Florida State either. A lot of things that drove this team to victory at Florida State continued happening in Cincinnati. So it's the consistency you like from this team now that they don't get too high and they don't start, believing their own press clippings, as it were, after one huge win. They kept it rolling.
Well, that takes us to that game. 75-70 was the win over Cincinnati on Tuesday prior to the bowl game. And I was there for PA. You guys were also keeping track of it. It was chippy in the first few minutes.
I'll say.
It was, you had...
we had like 6 technicals.
There were 5 technical fouls called on the game, 2 double technicals, and then 1 on the Cincinnati coach. But what I thought was happening. Okay, so this was Cincinnati's MO, right? They get in your face, they give you a little extra shove, they throw their elbows around, and they try and get you to react, right? That's what they do. They've been doing that since Bob Huggins.
And their coach whines on every call.
And well, whatever. But what I thought was really interesting about this, and I heard a couple fans kind of get upset when it was happening, was the officiating crew. I thought did a very nice job of this game because they, right when things started getting chippy, they were like, wham, double technicals, and then something else happened down. That was the first one was between was Williams and CJ Walker got teed up real quick. Walker, I think, got teed up. He had like just come into the game when it happened. And then with 5 minutes to go, by the way, 8 minutes, their coach gets a tech. And then with 5 minutes to go in the first half, Tari Eason for Cincinnati and Brandon Mahan get whacked for double T's. And I thought that was the officials saying, listen, knock it off, both of you. We're not going to have this tonight. And believe it or not, when that happens, that puts Cincinnati off their game because they like to live on that very physical edge. And the game was tied at 35 at the half. And then in the second half, UCF just went on a big run. They opened up a big double-digit lead. I think what was the biggest lead of the game? It was 13 points with 8 minutes to go. And that was after UCF kind of fought back after they fell down in the early part of the first half. But from 14:48 of the first half to 8:20 of the second, UCF swung that game by 20 points. And by the way, leading scorers, by the way, another 25 for Brandon Mahan, who was excellent. This hit 5 threes, 15 for Isaiah Adams on 6 of 8. Darren Green had 12 on 5 and 9. Dre Fuller had some clutch buckets. He was 3 of 7 for the game. Let's see, what else do we? CJ Walker, I thought, again, great defensive game. 7 points. He did come up with. Where was it? 7 points, 2 rebounds, 4 blocks for CJ in this game.
Rim protector.
Yeah. And I thought it was just a great presence on the inside. Had the big dunk that made the SportsCenter top 10. And this game would not have been as close down the stretch if it was had poor Darius Perry been able to make a shot. I felt bad for him. He just couldn't buy one. He was 1 of 11 from the field. And was getting good looks, and they just weren't falling for him. It was rough for him out there. He won't have another game like that, I'm convinced of it. But another big game for that big three again, Murph.
And you love to see it, right?
Yep.
I mean, this team is well balanced right now, offensively and defensively. They got their score. They have their established scores, and some of those guys are also their best defensive players. Like Brandon Mahan's a pretty good defensive player, but like CJ Walker, Dre Fuller are really good defensive players. And when you can get that defense with multiple guys scoring, 20 points or 15, 20 points a night, this team has been it's still kind of hard to wrap my head around the fact that UCF is 3-1. Like I haven't got my sea legs under me, my land legs under me yet. Like it's just sort of weird, but we will find out. We will find out how good this team really is, I think, on Saturday against Houston.
Well, here's another key stat from Cincy, right? Cincinnati committed 19 turnovers. UCF got 26 points off of them. UCF committed 8 turnovers, and Cincinnati got 7 points. So they took great care of the ball, and they forced Cincinnati into a lot of mistakes. 6 total steals. And
I think Cincinnati had like 14 more rebounds, but UCF had more second chance points despite that.
41-27. UCF actually got out-rebounded in this game and got clocked on the offensive boards too, 11-6. But second chance points, UCF actually did outscore Cincinnati 10-9. Can you believe that? That's
huge. Yeah. I mean, the offensive boards are great, but they don't mean anything if you can't follow them up. And so UCF they backslid a little bit in that area because they beat FSU on the boards offensively. But to lose that against Cincy, but still hold in there and keep those second chance points to an absolute minimum, it's a huge reason why they won this game.
Well, that tells me though also that their interior defense, aside from the rebound, the interior defense really is something, and I think that's where CJ Walker has been so far has been really spectacular. And if only they could get him one more body underneath to help him out. I think we saw a cup of coffee from Ibrahim Famuke Doumbia. He did get some backside help from Sean Mobley, but that's not really I think what Sean does. No. And Isaiah is getting out on the break, and that's what actually he was able to do. So he's not going to be helping down low rebound, but it just shows you the force that CJ has become as a defensive player, and I think the offensive game will eventually come to him. So that takes us to Saturday, day after Christmas, Eric Lopez, we have got some breaking TV news to tell everybody.
That is correct.
UCF
folks.
and Houston. Number 6 Houston, the Cougs, are coming to town, and this game will be televised 1 p.m. Eastern Time, the day after Christmas, on ABC, the big network. UCF is going to be on ABC on Saturday, facing the number 6 team in the country. Why? Because one of the bowl games got canceled. And and so they needed something to fill that time slot, and lo and behold, hey, UCF's available. I don't mind being I don't mind being in that slot. Like, do we got anybody we can put on? Oh, the UCF game. All right, let's do it.
Well, and they picked the UCF Houston game over Kentucky Louisville, so it wasn't like, oh, we have no choice.
That was a surprise to me, honestly.
Well, UCF Houston are playing better than Kentucky and Louisville right now.
True, but that's still you know, it's still Kentucky and Louisville. You know, if you're a college basketball fan, you tune in for that.
Sure, but not the TV execs. Look, you want the news? Here's the truth. What happened was they found out that Brian Murphy was going to be at this game, and they're like, guys, we got to put this on ABC. It's too big. It's too big. If Murphy was at Kentucky Louisville, this would be on ABC, but he's not. He's going to be here at UCF. You know, that's the big deal there.
Eric, has UCF basketball been on ABC before?
No, nobody in the American has. This is the first game ever in the American.
Really?
You know, the last ESPN, they've kind of started putting games back on ABC the last couple of years. Remember, you know, it used to be that would be the game of the week in the 90s and things like that. It wasn't until the last couple of years they've started to put games on ABC. But this is the first for the American. It's the first for UCF. The only times that UCF have ever been on network has been when they've been in the NCAA tournament. More recently, Duke and VCU. We know how those games worked out and how many eyeballs those games had.
UCF has been on CBS at least. Well, I mean, not counting obviously the tournament games, at least
6, 7, yeah.
At least 6 or 7. Plus, didn't we get one? Didn't they have a game on at the American Conference Championship that was on CBS too?
No, we didn't make it there, unfortunately. Murph and I was there. Had they gotten to the semifinals, they would have, but we lost to Houston in the quarterfinals. And so it's always Houston and UCF in the mix for television time, folks. And remember, 2 years ago, and Murph was there as well in Houston. College Game Day was in Houston for the UCF Houston game. That was the marquee game. Jay Billis did the game with Reese Davis. This Saturday, it's going to be Rich Hollenberg that'll be calling the game, who is the host of the Tampa Bay Rays, the American League champion Tampa Bay Rays host, alongside John Crispin for the ball game. But this is big. This is a big game. Houston comes in ranked 6th. They just blew out Temple after being off for a couple weeks due to COVID issues. But Johnny Dockett said, you know what? We know who Houston are. They've done some good things. I don't need to watch tape. I know what they do.
Well, Kelvin Sampson's done an amazing job with his group. I mean, what he's done at Houston, he's transformed them to back in the days where they were one of the best programs in the nation. He's done that, you know, every year since I've been in the league. I've watched them compete at that level. So he's turned it into a national program. And as players, you know, I love the way they play. I know they're hungry. They can compete every possession. They're going to fight you for everything you get. And that says a lot about a coach, because that's a lot of good teaching. So, no, they're going to be a really good basketball team. I've yet to see them play this year, but I already know how they're going to play because I hadn't seen them change, and I wouldn't either if I had the success he's had.
That was Johnny Dockett's talking about Houston. And
I'm sure he's watching a little bit of tape.
I think he's watched it since the postgame. I have a feeling. Look, I think rebounding is going to be a big factor in this game. Murph, you know this very well. Anybody who's watched Houston, Kelvin Sampson, in fact, I watched Kelvin Sampson's presser after the Temple game. Rebounding, they take a lot of pride in rebounding. UCF's got to rebound better in this game than they did against Cincinnati. You're not going to get away with the way they rebounded. And Johnny knows that. He's talked about the rebounding issues. They had the issues against Michigan. They can't afford to get beat up and rebounding like they did against Cincinnati, because Houston, unlike Cincinnati, will finish those plays off.
Absolutely. And Houston, again, never a tall team, never has been a tall team in this stretch of success, but really tenacious, extremely fierce underneath the basket. You've got guys like Quentin Grimes, who's been their star, but he's also averaging, along with 20 points per game, he's averaging 7.7 rebounds per game. And he and Dejan Giroux, I think Giroux's like 6'5", and Grimes is 6'3", and they're among the leading rebounders for this team because That's why this team plays. This team is really hard to keep out of the paint, even though they're not 7-footers. They are just tenacious. Houston's obviously played fantastic basketball. You saw them beat Texas Tech earlier this year. Quentin Grimes has been a total stud for this team. And, guys, just in time for the UCF game, Caleb Mills is back, the preseason Conference Player of the Year, who's missed most of the season due to multiple ankle injuries, one on each ankle. He could have played against Temple on Tuesday night, Houston's last game. Houston won by about 20, I believe, over Temple.
26.
Yeah. But they decided to rest him, and Kelvin Sampson said, well, he could have played, but we decided to sit him out, just so he's ready, full go against UCF on Saturday.
Central Florida's got a good team. Central Florida won at Florida State. That's great for our league. Tulsa won at Memphis. SMU won at Dayton. And you think about our next 3 games. That's how good those teams are.
All right, that was Kelvin Sampson talking about right there. It's UCF. They're the matchup. Part of a big stretch for Houston, by the way. And he talked about that UCF win against Florida State. Great for the league. And this is great for the league, too. This is a marquee showcase for both teams. I wrote about this on Black and Gold Banneret. This is the highest-ranked team that will play at that building against UCF ever. The previous highest-ranked team to play in that building was 7th by Cincinnati and Louisville in 2014. So this is a big deal. I think they're legit. Murph, I know you believe Houston's the best team that UCF will play on the schedule, even better than Florida State. You're not alone in that. There are a lot of people that agree with you on that. Some people think this could be an Elite 8 type of, maybe even a threat for the Final Four type team with Houston. I mean, Calvin has done a tremendous job. They've got a lot of depth. Sampson, obviously, they've had issues with COVID. Everybody on the team has had COVID, so they haven't practiced as much together. And I think actually Calvin's a little worried about that. So in a bizarre way, you're probably catching Houston at the right time because they're not at full, in sync, at least if you believe what Calvin says. Now, coaches sometimes, if it was up to them, they would have 100 practices. But look, man, it's a big game. It's a big game. Now, I do have some other news that might be a little concerning, Jeff and Murph, because you both will be there. Calvin Sampson, as we know, one of the great things about seeing Houston is this suit and tie game, right? Like, when does he take off his jacket? When does he take off the tie? It's become a big thing. Joseph Duarte of the Chronicle covers that. Yeah. Well, on Tuesday, Calvin Sampson did not wear a suit. He wore a polo, a Nike Houston polo.
You know what? I was just gonna say, like, this is the perfect year for Calvin Sampson because he doesn't have a suit that he wants to get himself out of. You don't have to wear a suit. So, because you can't just throw your jacket and ties around anymore with the protocols, there's some speculation that Calvin might just go with a polo. We will find out, Murph. You're going to have to let us know. Does he wear a suit or does he go polo on Saturday? This could be an end of an era here. Johnny went polo and slacks on
that was some sweet-looking polos, by the way. If anybody wants to hook us up with those polos, feel free.
Go ahead, Murphy. I'm sorry.
That's Calvin Sampson whipping off his polo shirt. Let's just keep that.
He did throw a water cup, apparently. Joseph Duarte did report that during the Temple.
Did he throw it or did he kick it? Yeah.
And did he throw it? Did he release it in the direction of someone?
I didn't watch that particular moment. Only Joseph Duarte. Apparently, he's on top of this stuff. So I don't know, man. I'm worried, Murph, because I enjoy when is Calvin Sampson going to take off the tie and jacket over-unders? It's become a huge national phenomenon. What are we supposed to do here?
The over-under is 20 minutes of the first half. Boom, there you go.
Yeah, that's cheap. There was a game, was it in the tournament maybe? Or maybe the conference tournament where the jacket and tie were off before the first media timeout.
Yes, we were right there, Nick.
God. By the way, just a couple of numbers to keep in mind as we go about this game on Saturday. We talked about Houston's rebounding, but I just want to put some numbers to it. They are they're a top 10 rebounding team, I get it. But as far as the numbers, they out-rebound their opponents by 13 a game. They grab almost 16 offensive rebounds per game as well. Their scoring defense is averaging about 55 points allowed per game. And they only allow a 23% from the 3-point line as far as defense.
Oof.
So UCF shooting will be challenged. UCF rebounding will be challenged. And with Grimes, Giroux, and Caleb Mills back, there's plenty of offense here where you get this balance, the kind of balance you've seen from UCF. But this is like a souped up version of what UCF does defensively and offensively.
They're going to be good, man. They're going to be good. My hope is that ABC. The reason why ABC took this game is not because they think it's going to be a showcase for Houston for March, but that this will be an actual game, right? That's at least my hope. Because you could get UCF has got a lot of pub off of that win against Florida State. National writers started tweeting about it, taking note about it. Everyone knew how good Florida State was coming in, and I think that really did surprise everybody how well UCF played Florida State. They're going to need another very similar game. In fact, I would argue an even better game if they want to be Houston.
And not only that, but Brandon Mahan and Isaiah Adams have become national names now. They become national names.
Yeah,
big time.
And CJ Walker, buy stock now. Our guy Rothstein. And let's not forget CJ getting on the SportsCenter top 10. I mean, that'll get you something going. So it's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be big.
Tip off,
big.
Yeah. So this is a big game. Tip off
1
at 1 p.m.
Tip,
ABC,
Murph,
and then don't forget Tulane Wednesday too.
Murph, I'm telling you, they've heard you on the show complain about tip times. Last week we trashed the 9 o'clock tip. I think they made it up to you here with moving this game up to 1 o'clock.
I'll just have to go easy on the Christmas eggnog and be ready to go Saturday morning. Really.
There you go. Easy does it with the cinnamon whiskey, Murph.
Yo, I'll tell you what, the blended eggnog, it's like cheap. You can't beat it.
You can't beat it. You can't. What do you put in the eggnog?
No, it's blended. So
it is blended.
All the stuff already. I think you can buy a good fifth for $8. I swear to God. And yeah, it's dirt cheap, but it tastes great.
Well, it's dirt cheap because nobody actually wants to buy it. Everybody's like, eggnog. I'm not even really an eggnog guy. Right?
It's great. It really is it is like drinking cream, but cream that'll get you drunk. It's great. But again, okay. I'll take it.
We digress. Let's get out of here before we get in trouble.
Sounds like you could have used that at the press box there for the football.
I have bought eggnog in May before, guys.
They sell it in May.
Yeah, because it's dirt cheap. You can almost get it for free. They're giving it away.
Wow, I'm surprised. All right. Don't forget, by the way, the Wednesday 7 o'clock Tulane on ESPN Plus, the follow-up to that game. So, Eric, you thinking we were going to do a night shift after Houston on Saturday?
You think? Yeah. We're going to be on around 3:30-ish. Murph will be in the building. We'll recap that. And, look, we'll see how it shakes out, man. I mean, this is fun because there's nothing to lose for this team. This is a great opportunity. This is the measuring stick of the league. So I think it's a great experience to them for learning, and we'll see how they match up. If they can somehow win this game, think about this. If they win this game, they would have wins against Florida State, Auburn, and Houston. Because people have asked this on the night shift show. Yes, this would be a top 25 ranked team on Monday if they were to win on Saturday, which would be super exciting. And honestly, if they beat Houston on Saturday, we may have to start thinking about travel arrangements for Murph to Indianapolis for the NCAA tournament. That's how big that would be.
Don't jinx it.
See, this stuff scares me, right? We are bootlicking this team right now after 4 games. We've got to stop.
We are asking for this thing to come crashing back to earth at this point. And it's really frightening.
But if they lose
things
the game,
are going
it's okay.
good.
If they lose, it's okay. It's my point. It's not the end of the world. It's
I get it.
all the game. It's a great. I mean, there's excitement here, especially as the advocate for Mr. UCF Basketball, Isaiah Adams, who people are excited about. Who scored 13 of his 15. All right, you didn't even mention him, Jeffrey. 13 of his 15 in the second half in the Cincinnati game. The kid's got a low post game. He's got it all. And I asked him about it after the game. How do you have all this repertoire, buddy?
Yeah, in the first half, the reason because I was in foul trouble. He didn't want me to get my third foul coming into the halftime. So he kept me out and just kept me going for the second half, knowing that for me, for the team, I'm one of an energy guy. for the team to get us defensively going. So he's wanted to come in and in the second half because in the first half it was a close game. So to come in defensively and like turn the energy up. We didn't have a lot of energy. So when we turned the energy up, then we started to grow a lead. And then so that's really what I wanted to do, just come out there and pick the energy up for the whole team.
Impressed me about you. You've got a lot of variety in your game. You don't just settle for jump shots. You got a post-up game, which you went to, especially in the second half. Cincinnati really didn't have an answer for that. You could drive. Just talk about the variety of the game there, because you feel comfortable there, it seems like, in the paint there, either posting up or driving.
Yeah, I tend to like do that and want to be a variety of like all-around player for the team and just transition my game to like for the future, which I want to do is go to the NBA and be able to be out there and be an all-around guy and be able to do everything on the floor. Because it's hard to figure out what you're going to do with somebody who can do everything on the floor. So I just try to just do everything I can offensively and defensively. So just be like a two-way guy.
You got a taste of conference play for the first time, especially a UCF Cincinnati game, being physical there, a lot of talking, a lot of emotion, if you will. What was it like for you being a part of it for the first time? And did you have to adjust to it a little bit? As you mentioned you got the quick fouls early. Did you have to kind of adjust to how the game was going?
I did have to adjust how the game was going as far as the refs and like the fouls. That part I did have to adjust to, but the talking and the aggression of the game, that part it just comes natural. I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna compete every time I'm on the floor. So that part was just a little natural, but just knowing when to go and when not to with fouls and stuff, and they're calling it a little bit more. So that was what I had to adjust to.
You know the thing is about him that's hilarious is like late in the game when it's going, I've never seen a player smile so much in college. He's having a blast out there, but that must also annoy the living tar out of his opponents.
He's a competitor. He is a competitor. And Dawkins loves that about him. He said that in the postgame that, look, he's going to make a mistake as a freshman because he's too aggressive. That's okay. He likes that about him. And I think that's why you saw him go to him late in the game, go into post-up mode. And he loves the challenge. He loves competition. This kid's bright. And it's exciting to see him on the court. And that's it's going to be fun. We've got a lot of great talent on both sides in this game on Saturday. Hopefully we get a good game out of it.
And he does, the thing that I really love about him, boy, he runs the floor so well.
Yep.
He really runs the floor well, and he gets back on defense, too. I think that's the thing. He has this sort of, kind of like a great freshman. He has sort of that infinite energy. Man, I just hope he can keep up with it. Because conference season, the conference play, we're going to get a hefty dose of it on Saturday. And that's going to be a very good preview for what we're going to see down the road in January, February, and hopefully March the rest of the way, too. So, all right. ABC, 1 p.m. Murph will be there. Eric, you'll be watching. I will be there. I'll be doing PA for the game, so that's going to be fun.
You notice Murphy keeps mentioning that? He's all these games there. You notice he keeps throwing that in there. I mentioned that earlier about Cincinnati.
Listen, I tell all my family about every game. I tell my family. I don't tell anybody else, but I tell my family I'm there for every game where they can watch it so that they can listen for me in the background. My sisters love it, and they're like, "Oh my God, we hear you." So I'm like, "This is great." Oh my God, ABC. Like,
yeah, your voice is going to be on ABC in the background.
Oh my God, like what a huge moment for UCF. Boy, if they can pull this off, that would be something. Oh my God, yeah. You thought I know. I gotta stop.
We have really set ourselves up for massive disappointment.
We really are. God, I hope they're not. I hope the players aren't listening. Please, guys, don't listen to us. Just play the game. Play hard. All right, that's all we ask. All right. ABC 1 p.m. on Saturday, UCF against number 6 Houston, followed on Wednesday 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus, UCF against Tulane on the home floor, and we'll talk about that, and then probably record our next podcast right after that game, and then UCF's next game after that will be at South Florida on January 2nd. That's Saturday, and that's a pretty good Bulls team this year that we're gonna have to deal with. So lots to preview for that game. So all right. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We got some more to talk about. Murph, we got baseball to talk about. That and more when we return. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you. UCF_Banneret, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. And, of course, blackandgoldbanneret.com. We are the home of UCF Sports, where, guess what, Brian Murphy? We got some baseball to talk about, huh? So the American released their, no, they didn't release it, right? It was broken.
No, it's Kendall Rogers.
Kendall Rogers.
D1 Baseball reporting that the American has kind of passed their little details here about the scheduling, what it's going to be like in 2021.
Yes. So, Murph, what were the details that we got from Kendall here? Because you were like, this is great. We're going to have double headers all over the place.
Yeah, and, a lot of, conferences are looking to, stay closer, stay less travel, more games in fewer days. And that's what the American is trying to do here. They've bumped up the number of conference games from 24 to 32. You can still have your non-conference midweek games, but they all have to take place before conference season begins. When does that begin? We don't know yet. But the season, can start on February 19th. And you can, and then you can have some midweek games. But the real nugget here is that you're going to have fewer midweek games and more weekend games. You will have 4-game series on weekends with a Saturday doubleheader making up as the second and third games of that series. So Friday, 2 games Saturday, and a game on Sunday, 4-game series on the weekends. And look, first, if you follow UCF baseball for the last couple of years, you've gotten a taste of this. UCF had a doubleheader against CSUN, Cal State Northridge last year on Saturday. It was just scheduled like that. I enjoy this because I enjoy baseball and I enjoy being in a ballpark for as long as possible. So it's gonna be good. And I think they're doing it right as far as trying to cram more games into a shorter amount of time, cut down some travel. Also, a couple other things on the tidbit. It says that the AAC will try to utilize MLB extra inning rules. So
do or do not, American. There is no try. Just do it.
Yeah, so it's kind of nebulous there as to whether this is going to happen or not. But sounds like there's a chance we could see the base runner on second to start an extra inning.
Yes, the international tiebreaker. I love it.
So hey,
Thank God.
Look, if that keeps us from going like 15 innings against Ball State on a frigid night in late February, I'm for that.
They kind of have to do that, I would think. I think the reason it's worded that way is, my guess is there's probably some split differences of opinion within the coaching front as far as that's concerned, probably. But you would think if you're going to but if you're going to play a 4-game series in 3 days, including a doubleheader on Saturday, you kind of have to do that. You kind of have to play.
You got to get those games over with,
because you only have so many arms you can use in college. That's so. I would think it would make sense. The other thing I wish they would do in college baseball, I think Jeff is definitely for this, and Murph, I know you hate this. Run rule. Like, who wants to stick around in the 8th inning on a 15-2 game? Like, what are we doing? Like, just
I'm fine with that too. I am fascinated to see just how this changes how coaches handle pitching staffs and handle their bullpen usage. Obviously, once conference begins, you cannot have any midweek games, so that gives you a lot of time between Sunday and Friday to get guys days off. You're no longer burning guys on Tuesdays or Wednesdays anymore. But once you get into a series, how do you go about using a guy on a Friday game? And then is he available for the first game on Saturday, second game on Saturday? Then if you use him in one of those games, how much is he available for Sunday? We know Greg Lovelady loves to use his bullpen. He's going to lean on it a lot. He always has. So this is going to really, I think, affect, especially Coach Lovelady's handling of his staff. And I really am interested to see how he goes about it.
Now, one of the other things I think is one of the people who reacted to Kendall's story said UCF midweeks with other Florida schools are now gone. Just became more expensive to travel. Am I missing something? And Rogers said, not gone. Just will need to happen before conference play begins. Do you think that UCF is going to try and get some more in-state before conference play starts?
Well, you have to. You cannot play a midweek game after once conference begins.
Right.
So, and then it's going to be all conference weekends. I mean, I don't know if they're going to have during conference season, will they have an open weekend where you can schedule a non-conference opponent? I don't think so.
Well,
I mean, it would be just as easy for them to be for Lovelady to be like, you know what, I'm just going to play weekends anyway, because it's the because the game is going to be, because this is going to be just a wild, time in conference season. Let's just get used to that schedule. No, what were you going to say, Eric? I'm sorry.
Well, and I feel like, and I could be wrong, Murph, I feel like Greg would prefer it this way. I don't think he minds playing. Not playing a midweek heading into a conference series. Now, I think the Florida thing is the only ones that he really played late in the year was the Miami one. That would be the one that's in question. The Florida one, remember, they weren't on the schedule last year. They're as of, so that wasn't going to be on the schedule anyway. So I think really the question will be Florida State and Miami, and maybe to a lesser extent, a Stetson. But I still think those games could get played before conference starts if that's what I don't think that's an issue scheduling, because I think everybody's in the similar boat in that regard. And I think this is good news for UCF and the American. The SEC has been announced that they're pretty much going to stay status quo, and they're going to try to get their games in. The ACC is the same. So they're going to have those opportunities. There's some good ASUN programs he could play with. So they're kind of at an advantage here as opposed to somebody like Wichita State that you can't just pick out a bunch of quality teams in their backyard. So I think this is all positive for the league, which is already a top 5 league, top 4 league, even if you don't play a non-conference schedule.
And if you're UCF, you want to play more conference games. I mean, they've always scheduled good non-conference opponents. Because you can get Jacksonville and Miami and other good non-con teams. But this conference, like you said, Eric, is really good. So adding 8 more games to your conference slate, probably going to help your RPI, depending on who you face. But more than likely, it's probably going to help your RPI. And guys, let's not forget, the last 2 full seasons, UCF has been among the last 4 out. So they can always use more quality wins.
Yeah. It's going to know we're going to get some of them. Obviously they're going to need more quality wins with UConn leaving the league though too. That's the other thing too, right?
Yeah, well, then you need other schools to step up, but USF is typically good. Houston can be good. We know ECU is going to be gangbusters because they always are. So yeah, but I have no problem saying that this is still going to be a top 5 league.
No question. And I'll add a couple things here. I look for softball to kind of do the similar thing. I would not be surprised.
I was just going to ask, yeah.
Series. The 4-game series, I think they're going to do that same thing. And again, ACC and the SEC have already gone on record in softball that they're going to play non-conference, which really helps softball. Because softball is, unlike baseball, they're kind of hit and miss in the league. Sometimes they're top 4, sometimes they're 6 or 7. That's going to help UCF softball from that standpoint because they're going to be able to draw good non-conference series. Sydney likes to play tough non-conference series. That will continue even in a limited schedule format like this is. But so I think this is a plus for both sports. My question to you, though, Murph, I feel like this would have benefited the 2020 UCF baseball team a lot because they were kind of built for this. They had depth starting and bullpen, where there's some questions about that for the 21 edition, right? That's my only concern is, does this really is this the wrong year in a way? Like, you kind of wish this would have been the 2020 deal instead of 2021, or is it too early to tell?
Well, yeah, I guess it is too early to tell because I think I think the thing is, obviously there's plenty of roles to be ironed out. But obviously the big one for the pitching staff as far as depth is, well, you lost your closer in Jeffrey Hakinson. Obviously they have options, Jackson Clare and others. So we'll see what happens there. I will say this. Hopefully the Gringos Locos next to the arena is open on Saturdays. I'm going to be hitting that place up every Saturday between those doubleheader games to get myself a burrito before the game 2 starts. That's going to happen every weekend.
Wow. That is wild there. Yeah, well, how many hours? You're talking. You wanted baseball back. You wanted baseball. You're going to get a lot of baseball here. You're talking. Yo.
And then Eric, we looked this up. You looked this up before the show, right? There is going to be a conflict with senior day at basketball.
Likely, yes.
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, it's that weekend of February. Assuming if UCF baseball is at home, likely there will be a conflict there with the last home. It depends on when this conference starts. Do they play that weekend? Are they home or away? But yeah, there could be, Murph. You could be doing a triple header for all we know on February 27th.
I will be there for sports.
Well, I know that'll be fun. We'll be doing some night shifts from the ballpark. Murph, where are you? Oh, you're at the Gringos right there. How's the food there?
Excellent.
I'll become the norm of Gringos Locos.
Well, if you're gonna
afternoon, everybody.
Can you just negotiate that for a night shift show then? Get like a sponsor?
Yeah, and I just sort of model I sort of model a different burrito on every show.
Listen,
Absolutely.
listen, I got to send that one up the chain, guys. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. All right. There was so again, credit to Kendall Rogers for getting that scoop out there. It should be a pretty cool season. Hoping everything gets off.
We got to, by the way, I got to think from the American standpoint, we should start hearing about the schedules for all the sports in the spring here in the next couple of weeks, right? After the New Year especially.
We should start hearing about right after the holiday, I'm thinking, because they're going to have to start pulling the trigger on this stuff real quick because, some of these seasons are going to be much different, and they're going to want to get the championships in, and to what extent do they want to stack the championships in the spring? I don't know. So, they're going to have to start pulling that together real quick. Speaking of pulling some things together, by the way, little interesting news note that I sent out around a little earlier this week on from Boise, Idaho. There were reports, thanks to the Idaho Press, that the Boise State University Broncos have been flirting with the American Athletic Conference in the fall of earlier this fall about the possibility of the Broncos joining the American for football only. There was a little bit of a FOIA document dump here that included some emails between their football chief of staff, who was Brad Larondo. He's also a senior associate AD, and their then athletic director, Kurt Apsey. This was back in August and September. That showed that they were having some discussions with the American Athletic Conference. One of the quotes there was, this is from Larondo to Apsey. Kurt, quote, I spent a little bit more time on Friday and over the weekend doing some additional research and calculating relating to the AAC, Larondo wrote. I know the option of football and men's basketball, women's basketball only is not going to probably work, and the Big West is not an option either at this time. So we're down to an all-sports move or not moving. Apsey responded the next afternoon saying, Brad, at this point, the AAC has told Dr. Marlene Trump, she's the president of Boise State, they are only interested in football. I would think that mindset would change if there were other schools in the West up for consideration, which I think will eventually happen. Still talking to the president, the AAC, and the Big West. Conversations are ongoing. So we have some actual documentation from an actual athletic director that the American is fielding offers for a 12th team here. BoiseDev.com also had some more emails that they pulled together. On August 28th, same guy, Larondo, emailed Apsey a document entitled Athletics 2020 and Beyond. It was a 4-page memo outlining, kind of like what athletic departments do, goals for the future, some challenge, kind of like, what do they call that report? Like a SWOT analysis kind of thing, where we should focus our efforts to advance. And according to BlueTurfSports.com, this was at the top of the list was leaving the Mountain West. Quote, Larondo's memo said, evaluate best conference placement for football program under current FBS football model with a move to the American Athletic Conference being the top priority. End quote. Now, Brian Harsin, we know, has just left Boise State. Was the head coach at Boise. He just left for Auburn. So Boise is looking for a new head coach now. They have had some issues with with having to cut back on their budget. We saw some staff get furloughed over there, but boy, oh boy, we all the time, guys. We keep talking about like the smoking gun. Like, do we smell smoke? Well, there's a fire right over here in Boise.
Oh yeah.
So, let's take a look at this. How's this gonna play out, right? Eric, what do you think?
I think Boise State's going to be joining the American Conference for the 2022 football season. This is a divorce
soon, though.
Oh yeah. Look, it's out there. I don't see how do you repair this? Like, this is out in the It's kind of when, if you cheat, you're in a marriage and you cheat on it's hard to go back. It's hard to accept you back.
Well, mind you though, this was not a leak. Okay? This was a document dump from a FOIA request.
Right.
Which, if it was a leak from Boise, that would tell me, man, they're really poisoning the well with the Mountain West by putting this out there themselves. They didn't put it out there themselves.
No, but
credit to the journalist who, by the way, did that, by the way.
BJ Rains, who is his father, Rob Rains, is a legendary covered the St. Louis Cardinals in baseball, by the way. So a little more baseball there for you, Murph. But Jeff, I remember this. Remember when the Mountain West signed their TV deal with Fox and CBS Sports Network? What did we say?
I remember I said it was still a house divided.
Bingo. And Boise was not happy because they just lost their exposure. Boise has always been on ESPN on Thursday, Friday night games a lot.
And the other schools aren't happy about them having a sweetheart deal where they get more money.
Correct.
And they were able to also push some of their football games over to another network?
CBS Sports Network has some games here and there, so yes. But that's not the exposure that the American has, for example, at ESPN. And I think Boise wants that exposure. And they're not dumb. They're seeing what's going on. The Mountain West right now is not close to the American, at least not in perception, maybe not in reality, all the above. They make more money, the American does, than the Mountain West does. And that's important because Boise's financially has had some issues in the university. They furloughed a lot of employees over the summer, from what I understand. Some of the coaches in their athletic departments is working, it was also furloughed this fall. So they have some financial issues, and I think they feel like they're capped in the Mountain West, and they feel they got a better shot and making more money and getting more exposure to go to the American and go back to ESPN. And I think ESPN would take Boise back, and I think the American would take him as the 12th member as long as it's not one of those deals. If Boise thinks they're going to get special treatment, then they're not coming. So really, Boise has no leverage here. Either you're going to come and kind of play nice with everybody, or you're going to be stuck there in the Mountain West and be irrelevant.
Here's an interesting email exchange from September 28th, where they actually broke down, where Apsey and Lorando kind of broke down the revenues and expenses if all sports move to the American. This is not just football only, all sports. Okay, listen to this. Quote, this is Lorando to the athletic director, Apsey. I was actually surprised when I did some breakdown of the conference schedules, and so far, how realistically the travel is not probably as much as we had assumed. Don't get me wrong, there is still travel, and men's basketball, women's basketball, and volleyball probably get the brunt of that. And in an attached document, Lorando estimated an increase of this is according to BlueTurfSports.com. The document says, quote, Lorando estimated an increase of $1 million in travel expenses for the athletic department, including an increase of $300,000 each for men's and women's basketball to charter to every conference road game. However, he projected an increase of $4 million in additional revenue from TV and media rights deals, college football playoff and bowl game distribution, and NCAA tournament basketball payouts from a move to the American. And Lorando also projected an increase of $2.75 million in ticket revenue for football and men's basketball games. In all, Lorando said he saw the potential for a, quote, increased revenue impact resulting from a move to the American Athletic Conference of $10.5 million. That's a lot of money.
Sounds to me like we got a pretty good TV deal after all, doesn't it?
Huh? There's that. But, if Boise's like, hey, this is going to, at a time when, like you said, they're struggling, I would say they're not struggling any more or less than any other school. It's just that those struggles have been a little bit more public, in part because of, we've been able to find out this information from document dumps like this. But that's really interesting to me. Murph. Oh, go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to add, I don't think the all sports thing is on the table. Not in the post-COVID. No way. I don't see the American going for that. That's a lot of travel for volleyball and the other sports. I don't see that working.
So you don't see it working for the sports that are in the because it sounds to me like Boise's like, you know what, we can pull it off. And
well, of course they do. That ain't for them, yeah. But I don't want to go to. You're traveling to Boise. Murph could tell you how brutal it is to travel to Wichita. Now you're going to ask Murph to travel to Boise for a basketball game? Get out of here.
Well, what do you think, Murph?
I'd probably still go to Boise.
That's great.
So, yeah, it's attractive. It's spicy. I would love it. But I love hearing you guys talk about it. But from my point of view, it's like, okay, I think it sounds great. I hope it happens. I have no insight into whether it will, and it's just really hard for me to speculate, guys. Boy, I don't know if you know this. I hate to speculate.
No.
So
you?
Sounds great. It sounds great. I hope it happens.
You know there are direct flights from Boise to Orlando.
I don't think there are any directs, but I'm going to start looking now, just in case in 2022 if I have to go.
Hey, this could, by the way, you opens with Boise this year in football. Right. So we
So that couldn't be a conference game yet.
No, but we might get, we might get used to that. I just don't see, Jeff. I don't see how do you fix this if you're the Mountain West? How does this relationship get fixed? I don't think all the concerns Boise has is not going to go away. So that's why I kind of think this is kind of like a feel. Murph has better vocabulary, but this is kind of a done deal in my view. I don't think.
A fait accompli.
Thank you.
Fait accompli. Thank you.
I think if you're Boise, I think this is your best option for football. And again, just go to the Big West for the other sports. Hawaii does that as well. I'm sorry, we're not. Okay. I mean,
but to be fair, like the Big West also has to have a say in that, don't they? I mean, let's be real.
They're adding D2 programs as we speak to the Big West. I think one of them anyway, but we'll see. We'll see. You're right. They do got to make sure they have a home for that. I just don't see the all sports. If Boise says it's all sports or nothing, then I don't see them coming. But if they say it's football only, and at the end of the day, we all know that that's really what they care about is football, they'll do it. And I think ESPN would do it, and I think the American would do it because that gets you back to 12. You get to 2 divisions, and you lock up that championship game, which could be in question in a couple years if you're still at 11.
ESPN would be all over that. Having Boise State playing against the best teams in the American, get them against Houston, against UCF, they would be that would make those Thursday and Friday night games look a lot more attractive. Not saying that they're not attractive now, but they would be even more attractive now.
A blue turf, baby.
Yeah,
right there.
Because they're already there on those games. So
yeah. So I think there's a 50-50 shot this happens by July 1st. Unless
by July 1st of 2021.
Yeah, because then you could be ready for 2022. You don't want this hanging around for a couple of years, and we'll see what the finances say for Boise. Maybe they come to cool. I think Boise is more likely to cave and say, yeah, we'll just come for football only. I don't see the Americans caving and saying, yeah, we'll do all sports. I just think there's too many coaches that would oppose to that. But you never know in this college athletics.
Well, the thing for me, though, is if you're the American, who are you having in your back pocket that's not a football school that you would bring in?
With Boise or without them?
If you told Boise, hey man, we're only interested in football only. Look, we appreciate the interest. We appreciate you guys doing your homework on this, but we got to keep these travel expenses to a relative minimum for our school. So let's do football only. And then they turn around and would invite potentially who? That's the question.
Oh, well, if you don't want to come
or do you invite anybody? That's the other question.
I personally would invite that school in Myrtle Beach that just had a pretty good football year. And by the way, has won a national title in baseball.
Well, I'm talking about for all sports because you're not going to get Coastal for football.
Sure you are. Coastal Carolina?
Why would you go to 13 teams?
No. Are you saying Boise comes with them?
Yeah, I'm saying they would. Boise does football only.
Different.
Who else would you? Yeah.
I don't know if they add another school for the other sports in that scenario. I think they just keep it at 12 for football. I don't think, if you did. Sorry to interrupt, but
you do have, we're looking at it right now, a balanced schedule at 11 for all sports.
for now, but we've heard Coach Dawkins and Coach Abe talk about they don't want that. They don't want a 20-game conference schedule because they want to have the flexibility for non-conference schedule. So I don't think that's going to stick around either. If you told me, hey, Boise's coming, we got to bring in another school that's a non-football school, I would say VCU is the target because they have a great basketball program, and that would upgrade your basketball league. And you could probably, pair them up with East Carolina and all that from a traveling standpoint. So if you force me to do that, I would probably say VCU, but I don't think that's necessarily a must, at least for basketball purposes. I would argue in other sports they might need somebody, but as far as the big picture, no. I personally would rather have Coastal Carolina than Boise State because I don't like too many teams that play one sport or, hey, we don't, this stuff. I think Coastal actually, if they could, I like them at all sports. But I understand the draw with Boise and the TV draw, so I'm not going to be against that either. So I just don't want to have too many teams where you're trying to figure out, wait, they're in our league in this sport, but not in this league. That gets very complicated, and I think people lose interest.
I think that's overstated.
Look at what happened to the Big East. After a while, nobody could recognize
No. The Big East was a totally different thing because you had 7 schools that weren't that didn't play football, not one or two. All right, so
right. I don't.
I see what you mean. You don't want to water it down.
Yeah,
this isn't watering it down.
Who would you pick? I mean, would you go VCU, Boise VCU package?
I was actually, I would be. I've said before about a couple schools that I thought would be really interesting. I know that I was on board with ODU, Old Dominion, a while ago, but the fact that they couldn't even field a football team this year because of expenses due to COVID, and they just outright canceled. They were one of 3 teams that canceled their FBS seasons this year, and the only one, by the way, that was actually part of a conference that did that. That was a major minus in their column. So yeah, I would say VCU.
I agree.
At gunpoint, I would say VCU. I haven't done enough research really to be able to say definitively, but just from a competition standpoint, I mean, men's basketball, they have been very consistent, much more consistent than I thought. By the way,
they've become almost a tournament perennial.
Yeah,
even with Shaka Smart left, they've had Will Wade left,
even before Shaka got there, they were pretty consistent under Jeff Capel and Anthony Grant. So
yeah, I think that's the best brand for basketball that you have that's out there that doesn't play football. I think if you did a Boise combo, I think it would be VCU. That's a good market, good passion. You take them away from
the
A10,
DC there.
The A10. Yep. That's not bad. It's not a bad trip, Murph, to go up there. Not a bad trip.
Well, to tell you what I've been doing for the last 10 minutes, the furthest city to the east that goes nonstop to Boise is Atlanta. But you can go to Boise round trip out of Orlando for like $250 round trip. It's not bad. That's literally what I've been doing.
Is that with a connection?
Yes. Now, out of Orlando, there's always at least one connection. Usually, if you fly Southwest, which you probably should because it's got lowest fees and you can get your bags on, you could usually stop over in Dallas or Denver. If you fly like Delta or American, they're going to send you probably to California and then up north.
Yeah.
But overall, it's like a 7-hour flight when you add in the layover time. When you add in the layover time, it's like a 7-hour day in the it's certainly doable. I've had much worse.
Later in 2021, Hawaiian Airlines is starting a direct flight from Orlando to Hawaii.
So you're saying that UCF football should play in the Hawaii Bowl again?
I'm saying we could pull it off.
I think we gotta. There's this thing called a pandemic. We gotta get past first, and then we can.
We'll get there. Hey, listen. Hey, my wife. All right. This is what we'll finish up on right here. So, by the way, I'll put the link to the Boise article in the show notes. But, so, COVID vaccines are happening, people, and my wife, who is a nurse, she just got her first COVID vaccine earlier this week. I I didn't, obviously, because I don't have the clearance, obviously, to do that. But our first responders, our medical personnel are starting to get it. It's coming around. I feel like for the first time we're seeing the beginning of the end. So, hey,
fingers crossed, baby. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. That's right. So yeah. Here's hoping that things continue to go. And by the way, also here's hoping that you, our dear Knight fan friends, have a wonderful holiday season. We are very thankful to you as always, and please enjoy your time with your friends and loved ones in as safe a manner as humanly possible, so that we can get to enjoying more UCF sports once the holiday comes to conclusion. Right at the day after Christmas, right? We got basketball against Houston. So yeah, it's going to be busy, guys. What are you going to be real quick before we go? What are you guys going to be working on once we get through the holiday and you start getting bored again?
Wow.
Wait, did you miss the segment where we talked about UCF basketball?
Aside from that,
kind of an important deal there. So I got more TV news. I got TV numbers for the Boca Bowl, TV numbers for Cincinnati football game, TV numbers for USF. That's going to be up on the site. And we're also working on, we got the second part of our Q&A with Tomahawk Nation, that Mackenzie Milton fella. What's he getting himself into? We'll find out. Find out right here.
Did you see the Instagram photo of him wearing the Florida State hoodie?
Yeah.
Oh, that was hard to watch.
It's so funny. I've heard talking to some people yesterday at the bowl game who mentioned that Instagram post and who all said like, "Boy, that really hurt. That hurt more than anything else."
We knew it was coming. I mean, it's like it's coming. It's coming, but it's still just, man.
I'm not
like it's
of that mindset. I just can't.
You can only guard yourself so much emotionally against that, So anyway, I get it. By the way, I got a piece that I'm going to be working on over the weekend that I've been really looking forward to. Eric, remember you told me about how looking at the defense the offense and defense by possession.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually been doing the research on it. Yeah. And we're going to have that for early next week. That's what I'm thinking. So
beautiful. Now that'll give us a clear picture for what we got to do in the off season. I like it.
Well, I don't know if it'll be clear, but it'll help clarify some things at least. So
it'll give us a Jackson Pollock-like conception.
Yeah, it'll be, there are shapes there, kind of like a Salvador Dali painting or something like that.
Are you entering your Picassos? Are you entering your Baroque period?
Yeah. A little bit of a Picasso there. You can sort of make out some things. Other things look like some squiggly lines, and you don't really know what's going on. But
you're basically just describing my journalism career. I mean, really, just squiggly lines all over the place.
Give me a break. All right, Brian and Eric, thank you guys again for a fantastic year. What a wild year it's been. I wish you guys both the happiest of holidays. Be safe to you and yours, all right?
Well, this isn't even our last podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, we got one more show in us before the year is over.
I know. But it's going to be right. It's going to be right before it. Like, what are we looking at? We're looking at the 30th, right? Wednesday the 30th. We record the next one. But hey, look, it's we have the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn happening. Christmas is on Friday. I'm just putting it out there because it's like, hey, it's been, it's a time to reflect, and I wish you both a very happy holiday.
I mean, actually, we might actually have to reschedule that podcast because there's a UCF basketball home game on the 30th. So
doubleheader.
Tulane, yeah.
Dare we do a podcast on New Year's Eve? Because guys, let's remember we're not doing anything anyway.
Speak for yourself. No, I'm just kidding.
Let's bring in the new year only way we can by giving you more UCF babble.
That's all you want. It's what you want. It really is what you want. And especially and by the way, to our entire staff here at Black and Gold Banneret, thank you once again. Happy holidays to you guys, and happy holidays also to all of our faithful listeners who've been through, who've been with us through this entire time, sending us your thoughts and your compliments, and also
your hate mail
and your hate mail. And but we thank you for it because you keep us on our toes. And don't forget, we're going to have night shift on Saturday after the Houston basketball game. hopefully that will be a very fun one. We hope. We'll have to see. And then, of course, we have our previews heading up into that game as well. So we have a lot to talk about still. Even through the holiday, UCF Sports never stops, and we thank you. Don't forget to, if you do not subscribe to this podcast, please do so on your favorite podcast downloading platform of choice. If you do, please leave us a rating on your platform as well as a comment. Let us know how we're doing, and don't forget to share the podcast as well. Make sure you tell a friend who likes UCF to give us a listen, because we really do appreciate it. We've seen things really grow a lot this year, so thanks once again to that. We owe it to you. So for Brian Murphy and Eric Lopez, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you so much for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Happy holidays.